This is our amplifier output if we wanted to add more speakers. So white noise. Sounds like the TV went off, right? Pink noise. Quite a bit different. So this little box got these two little knobs on here, and we have some in the owner's manual. There's a couple of recommendations. You know, is this going to go outside of an office? Is this going above 2 cubes? You know, where is it going to be that you're using it? And you can turn those knobs together in order to get sort of a more generic, pre-configured sound for a space like that. But it's a real easy solution to be able to offer someone and for you guys to be able to install, where you can just say, hey, look, I have this little box. We put it right in the hallway outside your office, and your sound masking is covered. That way you've got the privacy that you need. That way you're not going to get sued by anybody. Everything's going to stay private like it should. From here, you know, we make anything up to giant amps, and you know, we make a sound masking generator that's got 4 channels of 150 watt power that you can network connect. You know, if you're going to run a multiple story building like a hospital or something like that, where you want to be able to control all of them. Just depends on what you're looking for. But I think that guy dealer cost is about 250 bucks, I think. Retails for around 400. I mean, all you need to do is run a 12 volt power supply to it. So if you get 100 bucks to install it, you're done. That's a pretty good add-on sale. That's not going to, I think, break anyone's budget as far as getting the security of that privacy to keep those conversations private. Questions? Good on sound masking? So let's talk about opportunities. So we got a mix of guys here today. Some of you guys are already doing commercial full-time all the time. Some of you guys are doing residential most of the time, and then getting some of those commercial jobs. So spreading the word. I'm going to ask you guys a question. I want you to be honest. Okay, this is the trust tree. Okay, we're all friends here. How many of you guys do not have a website? Facebook does not count as a website also, by the way. Okay? If you don't have a website, get a website. Okay? People Google. And if you're not going to come up in a Google search with a web page, people are not going to call you. That is not to say that you may not be the best at what you do and have the best pricing and the most experience, but if I have no way to find that out, I'm not going to call you. You know, I travel a fair amount for work, and I have over the years, and I always like to eat at local restaurants when I go out, because you know, food everywhere is different, and I can go to Applebee's at home, right? So I'd rather go someplace local. So I always Google what's around my hotel. And if you don't have a website, I'm not going there. You know, if you can, and it's not expensive. Okay, if you've been told it's expensive, someone has misinformed you. All right, I run a website for a church group I'm in. I think I pay 150 bucks a year for the URL plus the, you know, being able to edit it, and it does not take a computer scientist or web designer or anything like that to do it. It's very easy. So if you do not have a website, please get one. Spread the word. And if you do not want to get a website, get a Facebook page for your business. That is my secondary option for you. Okay, because spreading the word is the #1 way you're going to do it. You know, if you've got customer testimonials, does everybody get those? If you finish a job, whether it be residential or commercial, do we get a customer testimonial about how good the work was and all that? Very important to put on your website also. People believe other people. You know, there's some stat I read about Amazon's website where 70%, I think, or something close to that, of buying decisions are made on reviews alone of a product. So whether it has the best price or not, if its reviews aren't good, people aren't going to buy it. So telling people about your success is very important. You know, some of you guys have been in business a long time. You know, I mean, touting that is very important because you're experts in what you do, and people want to deal with people that know what they're talking about. So it's important. You know, I would rather, your customers would rather find you on the web than find some, you know, hack on Craigslist who knows what he's going to do when he gets there. You know, what the quality of work is, what the whole project would be like. You know, so taking pictures. Does anybody here have a smartphone? Does anybody here not have a smartphone? You sure? All right, I'm just checking. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, all right. No flip phones. I know people with flip phones still. It freaks me out. Your smartphone has a camera on it. Take pictures of the jobs that you do. Post them on your website. Get an Instagram account. The more places that you can put yourself, the more people are going to be able to find you. Okay? As much as Facebook has torn down privacy walls of this world and made everyone's business, okay, let me go back on this. If you have a personal Facebook account, do not use that for your business. Okay? Because if you party hard on Saturday, someone finds your business on Monday, they don't want to see the pictures of you drinking at the lake or whatever, okay? So keep the two separate. That is important. But then make all your friends that are your friends on Facebook also like you at your business page, okay? So that way you just get more touches. Like every like that you get touches 20 people that you didn't know. There's some other ridiculous stat like that in the world today. Having a website, getting the word out is very important. What about community stuff? Has anybody here ever worked in a school or a church or anything like that? Right? So, you know, there's a lot of people that go to church. There's all kinds of parents that own businesses that have kids in school. You know, advertising with the booster club, the football team, the basketball team, the cheerleading squad, whatever it is that you're into. You know, sponsoring. It's not expensive to sponsor a local athletic team unless you're like one of those Texas super schools with like a real football stadium and all that. Then it might be more expensive than any of us are willing to pay. But putting your name in front of people that may not know. I mean, there's a lot of people that you know you may see at football games that don't know you're an AV contractor and they may have an AV need. You know, there's people that may go to the church you go to if you go to church that have a need for that may not know. You know, if they have bulletins or whatever, you know, putting an ad in the back of the bulletin, letting those members of that community know that you have the ability to do that. These are all low cost, minimal effort options that will help you reach more and more customers, which is what, at the end of the day, we're all trying to do. Talking to your customers. You know, if you get someone that wants you to do an AV system in their home, that's, you know, sweet projector, and, you know, big system and all that, okay, you know, that person probably has some money. They got it from somewhere, right? They probably have a job. As long as it's not drug dealing, they probably work in a building. Okay, so they may have the need for a system of some kind, whatever it is, or they may know somebody. You know, I'm not the boss, but we could use sound masking or background music or whatever. You know, letting them know that you're not just residential, or that you're not just you know, some guys get pigeonholed as I'm the satellite TV guy, right? That happens a lot. I'm the satellite TV guy. But the satellite TV guy is just as capable of running speakers and putting amplifiers in and doing everything else. You know, we just specialize or got started doing satellite TV. Okay, we talked about online. I really need to move that to first because it is so important, and I can't stress that enough. Website. Partnerships. You know, you may have there might be a drywall guy that you've met on jobs. There may be a tile guy that you've met on jobs. You know, there may be an HVAC guy that you've met on jobs and that you see once in a while. You know, why not partner with that guy? You know, why not tell that guy, hey, listen, tell all the guys that you're working with that I can do their AV, and I'll tell all the guys I'm working with that I know this tile, HVAC, whatever guy. You know, promote him on your website. Let him promote you on his website. You know, getting more and more touches out there. You know, maybe you're a combo deal and you pitch yourself to a contractor as, hey, we've worked together, we know what we're doing, we can do this job, no problem. And then being involved. Is everybody here a member of CEDIA? Anybody? CEDIA? You guys are? Anybody else? You won? Gave it up? Yeah. Not a big CEDIA fan either anymore, to be honest with you. What about Infocom? Infocom or NSCA or any of these kind of guys. So NSCA is the National Systems Contractor Association. Infocom is an organization dedicated to commercial AV integrators, and CEDIA is really the custom home, although that's becoming also, they're partnering with Infocom on a lot of things and bringing a lot of the 70 volt training. So there's a lot of stuff online that's available for those memberships, to those members, whether it be research, whether it be trainings, whether it be education. And the reason I suggest some of those is that if you go to a mechanic and you know, they're ASC certified or whatever. You know, they've gone through whatever training that makes them an excellent mechanic. If you're making the choice between a mechanic, one that is, you know, has this training and one that doesn't, you know, someone may be like, well, this guy, he's got a little more experience, he's got this training, I'd rather bring my car to him. Having some of that certification like CTS goes a long way when someone's making a decision on selecting someone that's going to do the job for them. You know, if you can say that you're CTS or CTI certified, that may help a customer choose you over somebody else. And then, you know, it also give you a lot of valuable information, both on a training aspect, especially on new technologies to help you do more business, but also give you access to a lot of that research and stuff that's available, that's out there. They do a pretty good job of that. If you're serious about 70 volts, I would recommend attending the Infocom show at least once in your life. In fact, you can go for me if you want. Got to be there to set up the booth. I'm happy to take your place doing whatever you're doing because I hate Orlando this year, so it's too hot and I'm too Italian. But I would recommend going because there's a lot of new stuff that is always there. You can meet a lot of new people. There's a lot of information. So if you have the ability to go to one of those shows, I'd recommend doing it. All right. We got any questions so far?
Well, just one curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever tried doing a white noise using inducers?
Like stick them to the wall? I don't know if anyone's ever tried it. I think that you'd run into the point source problem, like where you would know where it was happening. I think it would be stronger where the inducer was attached. You don't think so? I mean, it would work. I don't see why it wouldn't. No, I don't know. I never have.
Well, the only thing negative that I was thinking about was possible structural integrity.
You hit the resonant frequency of the building and it just falls apart. And that was the end. And that was the end of our inducer sound masking business, as we killed a family. And yeah, no, I don't. I have never seen that, and that may be why. Someone may have tried it and they figured out it wasn't going to work. All right, so let's talk about some products. All right, so let's talk about amplifiers for a second. So we had a question earlier about a 70 volt amplifier versus an 8 ohm amplifier. And in the 70 volt amplifier world, really you're talking about mixer amplifiers and power amplifiers, okay? A power amplifier is generally going to be single inputs, high power. So if you wanted to run from a zone 2 out on an AV receiver that was inside and you were going outside, you could. If you wanted to plug in a Sonos receiver to an amplifier and run 70 volt speakers, you could. Power amplifiers are very good for that. Come in single or dual channel often. So, you know, if you had some really big speakers that you were trying to do, you know, one zone going this way and one zone going that way, you could use a 2-channel amp to do that. Mixer amp, multiple input, single output. As a general rule, there are some multi-channel ones, which I'll show you guys here in a minute. Mixer amp is most commonly used in a retail store, restaurants, any place where there may be the need for paging and or multiple source inputs. You know, I want to be able to run the Sirius XM box, I want to be able to run the DirecTV box, and I want to be able to make pages. That's a perfect candidate for a mixer amplifier. And then we have some small amps also that fit both those categories. I should say they're both power amps. So what we're going to talk about today is the AAPHD, the DPA, and the little TSD guys. So AAPHD amplifiers, this is a product that we released about 1.5 years ago, and it is really designed to make it easier for 70 volt integrators to ensure that the system is working properly before they leave, and to make it easier for the people that are using it to use. So it's got two main functions here, the push here diagnostic, hence the PhD, also known as push here dummy, and the remote level control with source selection, okay, which is also an added benefit that these guys have. So they're available in 5 models. That's a 6 input 400 watt, a 6 input 200 watt, a 4 input 100 watt, a 4 input 50 watt, and a 3 input 30 watt. Okay, the 3 smaller ones are all half rack width. The 2 bigger ones are all full full rack width. They do come with feet on them, so if you're going to put them on a shelf, you can. If you want to put them in a rack, you got to make sure you get a rack mount kit. It doesn't come in the box. So push here diagnostic. What does that mean, Joe? Push here diagnostic means that there is a button you can press on the front of this amplifier that will test the circuit to make sure that you have all of the speakers tapped below the rated power of the amplifier, to make sure that there are no speakers that are tapped at 8 ohms, and to test to make sure that none of the speaker line is shorted. Okay, this is helpful because if you finish wiring all your speakers and you press this button and you do not get a fault LED, you know that everything is working. This is also helpful when your customer calls you and says, my system's not working. You can say, do me a favor, get a paper clip, put it in that little hole, and press the button to get a fault LED. If they say no, you have just troubleshot all of your speakers. They all work fine. So the way that this would work, if we had a speaker that was mistapped or that was 8 ohm, we hit that button and we get a fault LED and it makes a tone through the whole system. It goes beep. It's really annoying. Don't do it when they're open. It's disconcerting. However, if we were on the job, you could hit that button, we get the fault, I could start walking around listening to speakers, and if they're mistapped, it's either going to be it's probably going to be louder than the rest of them because it's over tapped, that's why we're getting the error. Or it's at 8 ohm, which is also going to make it louder. So I can get the ladder, climb up on there, fix the problem, and say, okay, test it again. Test it again, we don't get a fault, great, we move on to our next thing. We still get a fault, I keep walking, listening for other speakers, and then you yell at whoever tapped the speakers, tell them they're going to get fired if they do it again. And if there's a speaker that's shorted, it's going to be off. And then you can just get up there and, chase down that speaker wire. This is better than having to walk around and pull every speaker out of the ceiling, checking all their taps, because like we said earlier, the last one you pull is always the one that's the problem. So this just gives you a little bit of advantage in getting that done. Remote input selection with source, remote level control, that's how we call this. All right, so the cool thing about this is on the back of the PhD amplifier, there's an 8-pin Phoenix connector. It's actually 2 4-pin Phoenix connectors. You can wire this using a standard 8-wire Cat5 up to 200 feet away to this specific wall plate, and it will allow you to select between inputs 2, 3, and 4, as well as adjust the volume. So this is the perfect thing for the restaurant where at night the young guy comes on and thinks that all the volume should be turned up super loud. So this gives them the ability to switch the source, whether they're listening to satellite TV, whether they want to listen to satellite radio, whether they're going to have iPod, whatever it's going to be, and then they can control the volume from here. Like we've talked about, set this thing all the way up and only give them the ability to turn it down, right? So this would be set at its max. Cool thing about this is that if this is all the way turned off and you have a mic on input 1, input 1 will still come through at the master volume control, the master volume level. So if someone needs to make an emergency page, even if this volume is all the way off, the page will still come through at whatever the input 1 master volume level is set at. So just a couple of advantages to this guy. There's a number of mixer amplifiers out there. These amps are the only ones that do these 2 particular things. So just designed to make it easier for you guys. The 30 watt is the only one that doesn't have the ability to do remote level control. Okay, all of the rest of them have that capability. So for those of you that have never seen a commercial audio amplifier, this is a mixer amp. It looks quite a bit different than your average AV receiver. You'll notice that there's no antenna connections, there's no subwoofer out, there's no HDMI, none of that. So you will notice that on our inputs, most of these are Phoenix connector. So you can cut an RCA if you had to, or you can cut a 3.5 millimeter cable and wire it into a Phoenix connector pretty easily. Some dip switches that control some function as far as the remote level or the mute receive. You'll notice on input 1 that Vox sensitivity if you do have a microphone on there. And if someone clicks the mic to talk, depending on how high that volume sensitivity is, the mic will duck all the other inputs. So that the page will come through without having to contend with the music or whatever other source is on. Some RCA inputs, we've got a pre-out, another amp in, and then here's our common, and then 4 ohm, 25 volt, 70 volt option on the back of this amplifier. So depending on what you're hooking it up to, you can select how you're going to wire it to your speakers.
Joe, what about phone input?
You could do phone. Yeah, phone is right here, 600 ohm. That guy right there. No, that's an output. I'm sorry. There is a phone input that you can go into on input 1 on this, because a lot of people use a phone for paging. Input 1. Yes, that does exist. And then you just got to tell that through the, I think it's through one of these. Yeah, I think you can turn the phantom power on. Yes, input 1 for the phone. DPA series. Okay, this one's cool, and I'm going to show you guys some software. So these are currently available in a 1200 by 2, a 600 by 2, and a 300 by 2 capability. I've got the 300 by 2 sitting on that table over there. So the cool thing about this is that they are multi-channel enabled. You can use them in a couple of different configurations. They are network enabled. They do have integrated software, and they do have some expandability capabilities. So you can use it as a 2-channel 70-volt amplifier out of the box. That's how it comes. You never have to plug it into the network. You never have to go into the software. You never have to do any of that. You can just mount it in the rack or wherever it's going, hook up your speakers, hook up your sources, and call it a day, which is what we're doing right here. This is what this picture is illustrating. You have the ability to use it as a single-channel 70-volt system, as well as a 2-channel 4-ohm or 8-ohm system. So if you've got a restaurant that needs some big patio speakers because they, maybe they do live music sometimes and you need to run a bunch of power out there, you can do that as stereo 8-ohm. And then inside you could run it at 70-volt, or you can do it as a 4-channel and 4-ohm, 8-ohm, depending on what you're hooking up to it and what your application is. And all of that can be assigned through the software. So out of the box, it's 2-channel 70-volt. You do have the ability to go into the software and take a look at that. So software-wise, so you'll notice I have this little router sitting on the floor over there. My Mac didn't really like the way that direct connecting to the amp was working, so I had to get a little router so I could get DHCP. But you'll notice in here when we go into this screen, this is now user PC control. You could actually give your customer the ability to see this screen only if you wanted to, and lock them out of everything else. And essentially what this screen does is it allows you to adjust the volume, okay, which can be very helpful. The other thing that you can do with this is that if you have access to the network, if they've given you VPN access or whatever, and they call and say, hey, our amp doesn't work, you could actually log in to the IP address that this is living at, and you could look, did somebody accidentally mute it? Do they have the volume all the way down and don't know how to turn it up? There's a lot of different things that you can see from this that may give them, where you actually don't have to go out there and do anything. You can just do it from your computer and say, hey, all right, it's fixed. Because somebody might get access to this and they could, if a customer can find a way to screw it up, they'll screw it up. All right, we all know that, right? It's just the way of the world. So if we go into the amplifier setup part of this, so there's a number of DSP configurations that are in here. So right now, in this home screen, you'll notice that we've got our audio input and then our output. So if I turn my phone on over there that's plugged into this, our levels would start adjusting based on the music. We would see some activity on the screen. If we go into amplifier configuration, so you'll notice that we can do some input-output routing here. So I just set up input 1 to run to all the outputs. I'm really only using one output over there on the 70-volt. I do have the ability to tell it whether I want to run 8-ohm or 70-volt. So I can switch that up here. As you can see, I'm using outputs 1 and 2 and 70-volt, and then I've set it so that outputs 3 and 4 are 8-ohm. Down here at the bottom, you can actually add a password and administrator name. Out of the box, it's admin, which is what this is, but say that you were going to put multiples of these in a room and the IT manager needed to have the only access or whoever it's going to be. You could make the password whatever they want. They could also rename the amp. So, floor 1, floor 2, room J, whatever it's going to be, they can name the amp so they always know where it's at. Down here on the front, you'll notice that we can click on the auto power down feature. We can also disable the front panel power button so no one can ever turn it off without going into the software, because that is something that occasionally happens. And then we can also kill the front panel level adjustments. So right now it's set to the front panel, but I could set this to the GUI, and now someone could come up and turn those knobs all they want, and it's never going to do anything. Okay? Just it gives you a level of control that you normally wouldn't have. If we go to next, the mute link and port assignment. So we can do mute, send, and receive, depending on where we want it to go. Contact closures on the back, we can set those up to do what they want. Remote level assignment, again, we have the output configuration. So just depending on what sort of an installation you're using or that you're doing this in and what kind of functionality the customer is looking for, you have some ability in here to do some more features and functions with other things that you've got connected to it. Moving next, got our input-output routing. So, we can adjust the level here on the input. As you can see, these are all down to -40. I can mute them from here if I wanted to. This is another place if an IT guy gets fired and he had access and on his way out he goes in and jacks it all up and then customer calls you and says nothing works. You can always go back in and see if somebody went in here and messed around with some of the controls. High-low pass filters for your outputs, depending on where you want it to be set, just depending on what you're doing. Again, just gives you a level of control without having to buy a separate DSP product that either may be cost prohibitive for a customer or that they don't want to have to mess around with, or that you don't want to have to mess around with. A lot of DSP boxes right now take a lot of programming, in order to set it up so that you can run the product. And they're really expensive. This gives you some more basic functionality, but still some control that you can't get with other amplifiers. EQ control, again, just depending on what you're trying to set up, you can adjust the frequency, the Q, or the gain. Output level adjustment. Delay, so delay. If you're going to make a page or something and you don't want it to happen right away, you want it to be sort of a pause in between, or if you're going to hit the music or switch sources and you don't want it to come out full blast right away, you can do a delay here, so that way it won't blow people away when it happens. That's in milliseconds. Output limiter, you don't want people to blow up your speakers, so you could set this at whatever level you want, so it's never going to go higher than it would. In the about screen right here, tells us the amplifier information, what it is, what version of the software it has, what its IP address is, what its host name is. So we can unmute these if we wanted to. So just gives you some basic control. Cool thing about this is it's got the integrated DSP. And because it does live on the network, you can see it from wherever you are as long as you have network access, as long as they're willing to give you network access, which is the other important part. But again, when someone calls and says it doesn't work, it's way easier to open up your computer and log into the website or into that URL for the IP address than it would be to get in your truck and drive all the way out there. Questions on the DPA series? Nothing? TSD, time-saving device. These were going to be called the LSDs until the owner of our company realized that probably wasn't going to go over super well. So this is a 2x25 8 ohm amplifier. Okay, I also make one in this exact same size that's 20 watt, 70 volt. And then we make two more that are half size. One of them is 10 watt, 70 volt. The other one is 12x2, 8 ohm. Cool thing about this is that you can put it just about anywhere. All you gotta do is run your input and your output to it and then get it 12 volt power from a power supply that we sell, or any other way you wanna get a 12 volt power, and it'll work. Most 70 volt installations, especially 4 speakers, you're probably not gonna need much more than 20 watts. We talked about sound masking earlier, running those speakers at 1 watt. You can do a little 10 watt amp, you can mount it above the ceiling as long as you can get power to it, connect it to the generator, and your whole job is done. It could be as easy as that. If you've just got a couple of speakers to run in a dentist office, chiropractor, whatever it's going to be, that's a great little amplifier that does everything that the bigger ones do on the power amplifier level, just in a much smaller package. As you can see, we're still Phoenix connectors on the back, except on that 2-channel 8 ohm, you do have the ability to do a second input where you can direct connect some RCAs to it if you wanted to. Questions on amps? Nothing? All right, let's talk about speakers. So we, for a long time, have made the Strategy Series speaker. And I'm going to be embarrassed right now to tell you guys this. I thought my box was complete, but apparently someone had picked a part out of it that I needed. So I'm embarrassed. So we're going to watch a video instead to show what I would have demonstrated by hand. So we've made Strategy Series for a couple of years. This is the newest one. They call it Strategy 3. I don't really know why it's called Strategy. Its model number is FAP, so it doesn't make any sense all the way around, but that's what happens when engineers name things. So cool thing about Strategy 3 series, just like its brother, the Strategy 2, is you'll notice it is all encompassing. Okay, it has a CAN, it's got a port, it's got a speaker. This is a high fidelity 70 volt speaker. Okay, so if you're going into a restaurant and they want music quality sound, this is the kind of speaker that you're going to want to use. Okay, if they just want paging or background music, you can use a cheap high plate speaker. But if they want music quality, this is the kind of speaker that you're going to want to give them. So this is available in a couple of different sizes, 3-inch, 4.5, and 6-inch. You'll notice a couple of things. The tap selector's on the front, so you can wire it up, and then you can adjust the volume without having to pull it back out of the ceiling before you put the grills on. So, you know, if you set it at 16 watts and that's not loud enough, you need to go 32, you can just turn that knob. Be careful not to turn it to 8 ohm, because then you will blow something up eventually. It does have the ports on the back. The thing I like most about these is it does come with the Phoenix connector for your speaker wiring, so it's positive and negative in, positive and negative out. So there are no wire nuts needed for these guys. It does have the ability to use conduit. If your AAHJ requires conduit, it does have the ability to go into it with conduit. And please make reference of the secondary point of safety. When you put any speakers in the ceiling, make sure that you put a secondary safety cable on them. The last thing you want is for a speaker to fall out of the ceiling and to kill someone. Okay, that's bad news for everyone. Now the thing that I like most about this, which is the thing that I don't have the tool to show you, so I'm just going to pull one of these arms. So once you cut your hole in your tile, you know, normally you would get up here with your drill and you would you know, grab your drill and you'd screw the dog leg down, and unfortunately no one has x-ray vision, so you can't see the other side of the tile. So you just go until it feels tight, right? We've all done that. It feels good. Sometimes that 24 volt drill that you're using may go a little faster than you want. Now the leg is kind of like this, with a lot of stress on it, might be cracked. Most speakers that do this use a standard steel screw in there in high humidity areas that eventually is going to rust and break. You can have all kinds of problems with those dog legs. With that drill on the front of this, you could scratch it, you could hit the speaker. There's a number of different possibilities when it comes to that. So the way that this would get installed is you would have your trash can on the ground, put your tile down, cut your hole, drop this into it, pull out this little arm like this till you feel some tension, and you just got to pull it, and then you just push this back into place. Now your dog leg is locked into place. So this will go anywhere from double thick drywall all the way down to sheet metal, depending on, you know, what you're installing it in.